Hey everybody, welcome to the Eff Yeah podcast. This is Todd Kelly, writer and creator of Sheldor the Defender. Kickstarter is live right now. Also, Project Titans and Atlas Rising. I have an amazing crew with me today, and our laughter is because Swerve is being haunted by a smoke detector right now.
A
And
battery smoke detector.
a batteryless, a ghost smoke detector. So with me as always is Swerve. I'm going to let him intro himself.
This is your boy, the Incredible Swerve, creator of Swerve Comics, writer, illustrator, letterer, storyteller from Beyond the Red Door and Hardcore Chronicles of the Hit Squad, and the beeping, chirping, batteryless smoke detector.
What happened to rapper, producer, all those fun intros?
Rapper slash actor, producer, and astronaut. I'm gonna put astronaut in there this time.
Ash, because you're from outer space. I like it.
So from outer chirping space.
Out of chirping space. All right, now with us today, we have the always amazing writer, director, just all around awesome person, Miss Brandy Berry. I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Brandy Berry. Thanks for having me on. This is actually my first podcast. So,
Yeah?
I usually turn them down, but I felt like I had enough stuff to promote that I was into doing it. And also, Todd is my go-to person in the comic world. He probably gets annoyed, but he's always so kind to answer all of my questions. But I'm more in the film world, writer and director, and have just gotten into the comic world and am loving it.
So it's funny you mentioned that. So we met at Infinity Comic Con. I want to say it was like 2 years ago, year and a half ago. So whatever.
Yeah, I think like 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I lose track at this point. But yeah, so we met at Infinity Comic Con. I remember you came up and you were talking about this book that you wanted to get started. And I think you had started it, but you were between artists or something along those lines, or were very early. It was very early in the production process from what I remember. It was so funny because, you're talking, I think it was like Sunday. So like we just had all the time in the world to talk because it just wasn't very busy. But I remember chatting and it was just like, oh, this is really cool. Like she's gonna rock this out. And then I remember we touched base like a couple months later or something like that. And I'd shared a little feedback, a couple little things that I had run into in the beginning to try and help you, overcome those. And I remember you coming back and just being like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Like, here's where I'm at. And then, like, remember you sending me the artwork and how far you were. And I'm just like, then you sent me the script to, like, take a look at it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's so much better than I am. I was like, this is ridiculous. like, holy crap. So how's the journey going? How, let's kind of take it a step back. Sorry. Let's go a little, a little back. What got you into comics? Like, what made you say, hey, look, I want to go make a comic book?
So it was actually this script, which the comic is called Red Creek. It was actually a film script, and I had a crazy bidding war. Studios were interested in it, and which usually I know I'm a writer, I know my place in Hollywood. I would just sell it and be like, okay, cool, I'll take the cash. But I knew what I had with this. Like, this is a piece that when I wrote it, I was like, I do not want to give up the rights to it. No one's going to give me the money to direct it. And my storyboard artist on another script, he's the one that said, hey, have you ever thought of turning this into a graphic novel? Now, I was like, you mean like comics? He was like, no, like a graphic novel. And I was like, I know nothing about this world. I went and just bought as many as I could, started looking at it. And then the Tallahassee Comic-Con was the first one I had gone to. And I just wanted to get a feel of it. Everyone started looking at it, so and then kind, so helpful. And I was just like, this is the perfect way to tell my stories. Am I getting feedback?
Yeah, sorry, it was my speakers.
So yeah, then I just dove in head first, making a lot of mistakes and kind of learning as I'm going along to create it. Creating this story actually has spawned on to another military comics that I'm so excited about. So yeah, now I just feel like this is such a cool world to, as a writer, tell my stories.
All right, so we'll dig into the military story in a second, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Red Creek? Can you tell us a little bit about the story?
So it's I still am unsure how to pitch it because it sounds so weird off the top. It's a vampire western.
All right.
That's the look that I usually.
You got Swerve's attention.
really what it's about is PTSD. So we have a Civil War veteran who is the sheriff of this tiny town, and really he's just trying to drink himself to death. Like, he is just, I'm out, but I'm too chicken to like pull the trigger with a bullet that was made out of him and his wife's rings that are silver, which comes into play. So then a faction comes into town, which are vampires, and the townspeople are all pitchfork, torches, let's go take this on. He's like, I've been on the losing side of war, Gettysburg. That's not how we should go about this. We have to be smarter about it to go and attack it. Also, our head vampire is Cain from the Bible. Okay. And you know how Bill Murray at the end of Groundhog Day is just zen? That's how Cain is. He's apex predator. He's lived for thousands of years. There's nothing he hasn't seen. Like, he is just zen, in control. And then the silver bullet gets shot into one of them. That's a whole big scene. And that's when Cain is like, ooh, this guy Holden, our main character, he might know something that I didn't know. And so anyway, it's just, it's really about PTSD. It's about fate, but it's wrapped in this Western with vampires.
I like that. That's totally different. That's totally something new. I like how you put the Bible in there, Cain, because he's supposed to be a fugitive and a vagabond, so he's supposed to be an eternal like person. That is creative. I like that. I did something similar with one of my heroes by using the armor of Lucifer in one of my stories, and that is I like that concept totally. That is badass. I like that.
Thanks.
Totally original. That's all I have.
All right, cool. Okay. All right. So now I've seen some of the artwork, which absolutely looks amazing, by the way. So it's again, very cool, and the whole story was awesome. So that's Red Creek. Now, you talked a little bit about another story that you're working on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of talk about like the process and all those fun things.
Yeah. So in doing Red Creek, when I was like, okay, this is how we're telling the story, I knew that my main character, the veteran, was not as fleshed out as he should be. So I was trying to find a veteran who had been in battle, been out, and gone back in, thinking I'm going to come across like a Vietnam veteran or something to get the real deal about. I actually became friends with Andy Stump. He does a podcast called Cleared Hot, and he's really, even LaFace is our main character, is very much based on Andy. He really gave me such good information. He was a Navy SEAL who had gotten shot, came back and recuperated, and went back into battle with like bullets in him still. So he's a very cool guy. He's a little quiet about telling his stories. And I was working with him and Mike Glover, who is a Green Beret, or retired Green Beret. And I was working with them on a totally different script. And I just was showing them the artwork from this. And Mike goes, oh my gosh, I would love to tell our stories in comic form. And so we started doing that. The first one is Andy was on the Jessica Lynch rescue. And so our first issue will be called Objective Barracuda, which is what they called that objective. And it tells the story from Jessica's side. And then when you flip it over, it'll tell it from Andy's side. So those are called The Speed of War. And we are super excited about just hopefully releasing a few issues every year and just telling as many stories as we can that aren't being told about real life military. I call them heroes. The guys get upset when I say that, but.
Well, when you started describing it, my first thought was at least real life badasses. Like, I was just like, wow, okay, cool. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. All right. So you've got, what you got, Swerve?
No, I'm just saying, I like all the original stuff that she's coming up with. I mean, because, in this line of work, if you got something original, you can take it and go far with it. And not piggybacking off nobody. That's the one thing that a lot of the mainstream media has now. Everything is like they're trying to redo stuff and piggyback off of other stuff. Just come with original stuff. That's the whole point of being a creative. You're making up new things and coming out with new ideas and stuff. So I applaud all of it. I got to get a hold of your book.
Thank you.
I want to see the old vampire Western there.
again, it's very unique looking. And from what I've read, it's paced very well, which I thought was one of the cool things from the content you showed me. It was just like, wow, again, I enjoy this pacing. I thought you told the story very well. Um, but so you mentioned again the other series and the Speed of War, and I believe that's the one. Is that the one you guys took up to New York?
So I actually took both of them kind of up
Okay.
there, and I had just sort of character cards to sell, and
Yeah.
really it was just sort of my how do you even do a Comic-Con? So
Right. Yeah.
like just like let me do a practice run.
Yeah.
So it was very nice, and the enthusiasm for both projects was so cool. And then the guys for Speed of War, they signed some of the character cards, so we were
Nice.
selling some of those. So that was really cool. Yeah.
So that was your first con. So let's talk about that for a second because I think it's funny you popped up to New York for your first con. You're just like, hey, look, not only am I gonna like go and do a con, but I'm gonna go crush a con. So you jumped up to New York. So what was that experience like?
Um, it was good. Well, I just kind of went in with no expectations. So that was sort of how I like to try things out at first, is just sort of like, okay, let me just try it out. Again, this industry, I don't want to like badmouth the film industry, but I do have very good supportive people, but I feel like it took me a long time. It can be very cutthroat. People are in it for themselves. What I have found, same in New York, same when I met you, everyone's so helpful, so kind, so supportive. Just had other artists and creators come up to me and loved the stuff. It was really cool. So, yeah, no, it was a great experience. I stayed in the hotel, so it was very easy. The next one I'm going to is Chicago, and I'm a little like, oh, how do you get all these boxes of, stuff to the convention center? So I'm a little worried logistically, but I think one of the guys, Mike or Andy, will be coming with me. So hopefully that will be easier.
It's interesting because again, I think that actually always becomes kind of a logistical challenge, especially in the bigger cities. The ones where you stay in the hotel, it's absolutely the best thing in the world. We did one in Orlando where we were staying in the same hotel as the show. And my running joke was that like I was just going to roll down like 5 minutes after the show started in a bathrobe, and because like all the other shows, like you got to get there early, and you got to, again, like you have to deal with all the stuff. You got to get set up. You got to get prepped, and finding food is like one of the biggest nightmares at cons. I remember the first con I went to, and like people, I saw people bring food, and I'm like, I wonder why they did that. And it was because you didn't want to like go, pay $20 for a con hamburger in the middle of the day, which was smart. I learned that at my first show. And after that, like I always try to scope out good meals every time we go do these things. In fact, one of my favorite shows, there was a Wawa right outside the show, and we just snuck over to the Wawa and like got food every single time. That way we didn't have to do conflict.
Nice.
So you mentioned obviously having your, again, doing the directing side of it. So is there any, can you tell us anything about the projects that you've directed?
So I have a film that I wrote and directed called Freshwater. It's on Amazon. I can't remember if it's still on Amazon Prime. It's been a little while. So, watch it. Knowing it's my first film, don't go in with high expectations.
It's still cool that you did it. Like
that definitely taught me, like, I think pacing, kind of editing in your head. I do write already knowing kind of like, oh, close up, wide shot. So I think that helps me in the comic world. Like, I mean, you can ask my artists if they think I overdo it. I'm like, oh, I want a close up. Oh, I want like I feel like I know how I see the story unfold. So I think that helps as a director. And then so that's my only film that I have directed. I do a lot of commercials as well. So trying to think if any of them have been out for a while. Like I did one of the Pass It On, like Pass It On Gratitude.
Yeah.
I directed one of those commercials. Hopefully, knock on wood, if my industry doesn't go on strike in May, I have a project that it's really Pride and Prejudice, but it's set at a horse barn. So hopefully I'll get to direct that one called Hearts and Horses.
Well, heck yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
All fingers crossed. Everything goes well.
Yeah.
So how did you get into directing? Like what?
So I actually played polo before this. That was my day job. Is you sit on the horse and hit the ball, and
yes.
played all over the world, and that was what I was going to do the rest of my life. Now then, I did make movies with my brothers. I have 3 brothers, and our little home movies. In our heads, they're awesome. They probably aren't as awesome as we. Like we had a whole Super Santa series that I'm really surprised no comic has done Super Santa as like a superhero who saves Christmassy stuff. But I played polo with a very well-known actor who's very grouchy. So I don't even know what possessed me to go to him one day. And I was like, hey, I have an idea for a script. And he goes, write it. Now then, I took that as encouragement, like, oh, I should go write that. If I thought about it for 2 seconds, that's just how he gets people to leave him alone. But I went and I got like every screenwriting book. I wrote it. I bring it back to him. And he said in the 30 years he's been in the industry, no one has actually written it. That he says, oh, you should go write that. He then proceeded to tell me it was crap. But yeah, it was my first. But that if I brought him some, and he gave me notes like why it wasn't good, and he said if you work on it and you do something good, I will make some introductions for you. So in the meantime, I ended up getting very badly injured playing polo, broke a bunch of bones on the right side. It's a very dangerous game. Came home to Tallahassee and ran a horse farm out on off Crump Road, and just wrote and he actually ended up really liking one of the screenplays and made introductions for me. And so I do a lot of rewrites on screenplays. And yeah, that's how I got into the industry.
I have to say that's one of the most interesting stories on how someone got into something that I've heard. And I hope my facial reactions rolled with that, because I was just like, wow, that's nuts. So many questions. It's interesting though. So you mentioned, he's like, hey, it's crap, but here's why, and here's how you get better. How did you take that? Like, how did you feel? Because again, like I know for me writing, like, when someone gives me feedback, when I'm in the right mindset, like it goes well. When I'm not in the right mindset, it does not go well. So, how did that, affect you?
I am going to say, I don't know how talented I am, but I will say the 2 things. I am tenacious. Like I will never give up on something. And I weirdly crave the feedback. Like if the feedback on a script is like, this is great, I'm always like, you're lying. Like, and I can't get better if you don't tell me. Right. So I think that has really helped me, especially as sort of like I did a project for Blumhouse, did rewrites for them. Mm-hmm. And one of the producers said, oh, you're really easy to work with as a writer. And it's because I think I don't take it personally, the criticism. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, that'll make it better. I mean, I definitely stand up for, well, I wrote this because X, Y, Z. That's why this scene is in there. And a lot of times if I can explain why, they'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, criticism has never bothered me. Like, I'm always, oh, okay, then I can fix that. That's an easy fix. So.
All right. Well, that being said, be prepared. Because when you get out there at the Comic-Cons, you're going to have people who come buy your stuff on Friday, and then they come on Saturday, and they will bring you a list of notes.
Really?
It's going to happen.
That's good to know.
just be ready. Best advice, and you seem less snarky than I am, so you'll probably handle it very professionally, and instead of how I handle it. So just.
And what do you say? That's so interesting that people would. I mean, it's already done. What do they think you're going to do? Go back and.
So we've had a few situations. We've talked about it once or twice here, where again, I had somebody who wanted to be my letterer. So they came in and they were like, hey, I really enjoyed the story, but your lettering sucks. And it's funny because the first book, that's true, the lettering was not great. But we got a new letterer, and we went and relettered everything. And what he got was like the updated lettering from a professional letterer, who works with a bunch of different publishers and crushed it. And And so he comes back and he's critiquing it. And he's just like, all right, cool. So he's like, I can fix this for $20 a page. And I'm just like, you can go enjoy the rest of the show, sir. Like, so yeah, just be prepared. Like it's a very interesting thing because again, it's one of those things where I think everybody feels like they can do it, or if they've read a comic, they feel like, hey, I can do this. So you get very interesting feedback at Comic-Con. So just be ready. It's all good. It's all fun, and everybody's there to have a good time. But while you mentioned that a lot of the other creators are very just engaging and very helpful, it's interesting that sometimes the fans are kind of brutal. So
interesting. Now I did have some interesting people come to that and because I felt like, well, I have to be engaged and talk to them. There was one guy that became a little stalkery, so I will say the guy at the booth next to me was very good about like blocking him a little bit for me, but overall I thought everyone was so kind, very sweet, very excited about these projects. So but interesting that they want. I mean, look, my film Freshwater, it certainly does not have a high IMDb rating, so I'm used to the criticism. So I will say that one did hurt a little, but the same thing, because I was like, well, what do these people think? I'm not gonna go back and reshoot it. Like, it is what it is,
No, I get you, but yeah, it's just people are interesting because you'll have a bunch of artists out there that they're looking to try to get work, and so they'll come and they kind of come out. They'll be like, "Oh, well, who did this? Oh, okay, well, this isn't really good. So if you want something better, like I can do it for you. I'll cut you a deal." And you're just like, "Not here, man. Like hit me up on social media or something afterwards." But like you don't have to like drag so and so or talk bad about this or whatever to try and get work. So it's again, it's just people are interesting. So you mentioned you got Chicago. So what show are you guys doing in Chicago?
I think it's. I meant to write down all this stuff. I think it's the FanX one. Is the one in August.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So we have both booths for the Red Creek and the Speed of War, and then applied for Dragon Con. I don't know if I'll get in, but then also the Salt Lake City Comic Con, the FanX one in September. We are both booths will be in. Okay. And at least Andy for sure will be at the Salt Lake one. I know he has his own fan base for the Speed of War, so he will for sure be at that one. So
are you going to bring Red Creek to Infinity Con in July? You going to do Tallahassee?
Yes, and that one. Why did I forget that one? Yes, I'm in that, and Red Creek will be at Tallahassee Infinity Con. Yes. Nice.
All right. Well, we will be there, so we will have to meet up. Yeah, that one's going to be a fun one, and then. Depending on when you have Fan Expo in September, Ocala does a really good Comic-Con in September as well. It's just called OcalaCon, but they crush it. So that's another good one.
Yeah, I'm still learning on that and how, like on the Speed of War, both the guys have such a huge fan base. Getting that word out, I'm not as worried about. But on Red Creek, like no one knows me, and I don't know. I guess that I'm just trying to get the word out to get people interested in it. So,
well, you'd be surprised because again, like you go do a few of these shows and you just get out there and you talk to people and you grind it out, and then again, it is what it is. But hop on a few podcasts and like spread the word, get the short form media out there. Now you've you and I have talked about this before, but in terms obviously you don't want to work with a publisher on Red Creek, right? Like you want to maintain. Everything with this one, right?
Yeah. So I know it's 5 books. I know where the story is going. And the whole reason I didn't opt in the script was because I wanted to maintain control. Now, I'm not against using a publisher, but if it's anything like a distributor or a studio in the film world, totally understandably, they will want to put in their 2 cents. And now I'm going to try to just go it on my own and see how that works.
No, I love it. I love it. I think it's a great way to go. Some of the challenges we've kind of run into, and again, like as you kind of jump into it, it's like, okay, cool. How do I get consistent distribution? How do I, battle these things? And that's where sometimes, again, the publisher comes in, but you also run into challenges. We've had, interactions with, a couple different publishers, and we've had one book signed with one at one point, and they were like, all right, your book's coming out in February. And we're like, fantastic. And then we never heard anything. And then they're like, okay, it's going to be July. And you're like, that's not quite February, but okay, we'll make it work. And then, we get closer to, to when it needs to basically all be uploaded, and they're like, okay, we're going to do September. And we're like, wait, what? Like, what is going on? So, I mean, it's just, obviously it depends on who you work with. And, a lot of the publishers out there's a lot of them that do amazing work. And then there's some that are just trying to figure it out just like everybody else. And they're going to make mistakes along the way, and that's okay too. But obviously, like you talked about, you want to be protective of what you're working on and what you're working with. And, again, we're not with that publisher anymore. I have no ill will towards them. I absolutely wish them the best. They were just stumbling through and figuring things out at a time where we couldn't afford to have somebody stumbling through and figuring things out. Again, such is life. Wish them the best.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the money, which again, I feel like artists, who does text, all of that, I know as a screenwriter, I don't write for free. So, they deserve that. And then it's just when I get ready to distribute, again, I don't know, the film world, like my film, we went with a distributing house, so they obviously take a cut. Again, no worries, but they somehow they got that worldwide distributed.
Right.
Freshwater was in theaters, I think in Germany, which is so bizarre to me. But so if there's like is there a distributor like that?
Well, so again, a lot of times it's going to be the publisher. A lot of times the publisher is going to take it, and they're going to work with either Diamond, or they're going to work with Simon & Schuster, whoever they're gonna, there's a bunch of them now. It used to only be Diamond, now there's a ton of them. So there's a bunch of different ones that they would kind of set up and work with. Now that being said, there's a bunch of, again, smaller publishers that already have the distribution that you could kind of get with, that would probably publish it for you and not want to make any tweaks. They'll just let it publish it the way it is, just to have the book because it's that high quality. But again, those are kind of the connections you'll make, like at the Comic-Cons and just kind of getting out and getting about. You'd be very surprised. And the game has changed so much just since COVID. Like, COVID broke it all. One time it was pretty much just a monopoly, and COVID broke up the monopoly. And now there's so many different places that you can go for the distribution channel. And it can work out very well if you're able to push it and if you're able to invest and it's not even just a money thing. It's again, a time thing. Like that, I think that tends to be one of the biggest ones when you're trying to go indie and you're trying to push, is from a time perspective. You're one person. You can only do so much, and then you have to let other people get involved. And unfortunately, sometimes when you get other people involved, other people let you down, and you got to be okay with that. Sometimes they do it all well, and sometimes not so much.
Okay. No, I am. We're doing like a limited edition on Red Creek, which is sort of the middle piece of the story, just because I wanted to have something done. My artist is amazing. He just is slower, and he knows this. I'm not saying it, but he's a little slower than I would like. So that should be done this week. And then I was going to, go to print publishing, and then I was thinking, I have commercials and films coming up. When people order online, it will just be me packing it, sending it. So I hope there's a lot, but I hope people are understanding if it takes a little, sending out the comic.
So it's funny you mention that, because I honestly don't sell online now because of that.
Really? Okay.
Everyone expects it to be like Amazon next day delivery. And I've had to have some conversations before where I'm like, hey, look, guys, I got a full-time job. I have a wife. I have an almost 4-year-old. I was like, if you order it on a Tuesday, I can guarantee that it's not going to get shipped out till Saturday. I can promise you during the week, I'm not going to ship it out. It's not going to happen. I'm not even going to try. It's going to be significant.
Right.
But because everybody kind of had those expectations, I kind of shut it down. And then on the other side of it, I also noticed at Comic-Cons that people would come up and they would talk to you. And at a Comic-Con, everybody has limited hand space and they have limited finances. They're bringing X amount of dollars that they plan on spending. So as soon as they find out that they can buy it online, there's no urgency to buy it from you at the show.
Interesting. Okay.
We stopped selling online. Now I am doing my first Kickstarter, and I'm treating Kickstarter kind of like an online pop-up store. So it's like, okay, cool. Here, you've got a month. Everybody can back it for a month, and then at the beginning of next month, I'm going to do a one-time deal where I ship it all out and it's all going to go. But when you do it through Kickstarter, nobody expects like an Amazon turnaround. But for some reason, just it is what it is. The culture has kind of changed the way it is. But right now, if somebody if they order it, they expect it like ASAP. It's just
that's good to know. Now, I wanted to ask you about Kickstarters. Do you do it as like I don't really need to raise money for it, but I would love to sell it? Do you do like extra, like a signing character card or something if people buy it?
So I kept it very simple in this one. And like I said, I treated this one, it's just an online pop-up store. I already funded the book. I already sent it to print. Like all of that's already done. So to me, this is just an online pop-up store. So people can come in and essentially I set up, I think 5 tiers. I did one of them was digital only. I did one where they could just get the first book. I did one where they could get all my first books. And then I did one, I just uploaded the cover. Grey Ghost Comics, shout out to our sponsor, great guys. Scott Beasley just sent me the variant cover. So I went ahead and uploaded that. So we've got one where you can get this fancy Grey Ghost hat. Also with the new cover that Scott just put together. And then you also get the other cover as well. And then I did one where you could, because it's an all ages book, following warrior dogs, I did it where you could get your dog in the next book.
Oh, cool.
And that was it. So I kept it very simple. It was 5 tiers. You'll look at some Kickstarters, and I mean, there's like 30 tiers. I don't have that kind of time. I'm not going to be able to ship all that stuff out. So I made it very simple based on what I need. So what I would encourage you, if you do a Kickstarter, is base it around what you're able to do. It's not a keeping up with the Joneses thing. Don't try to go do what the guy who's done 47 Kickstarters already is trying to do. Just do what you're capable of doing and put in something that again makes it kind of special and unique to you. So if I were in your shoes and had your skill and had your talent, one of the things that I would kind of put in there is potentially even like doing a short little class where you kind of talk about like directing, and how to get into it, or even from a writing perspective, you talked about, doing rewrites, talked about kind of how you got into that, because it's a very unique aspect of the business that not a lot of people have knowledge about. And it would be something where it's like, hey guys, I'm going to host, this class. So if you want to jump in on this class, there's going to be 10 spots. So you just make 10 spots available. You do it via Zoom. You do one, 30, 45-minute class, and they're going to get your book. And then you'll go in there, you'll teach the class. You give them like 30 minutes of content, then 15 minutes of Q&A, and you're done. And you could do, again, one on writing, one on directing. And then all of a sudden you've got, 20 spots where you can, charge 50, 75, 100, or whatever you want to charge. And that would make yours very unique and kind of give you a bulk of stuff where, you've got a higher priced item. And then you've also kind of got your lower price where it's just, the comic book, where it's, the comic book and the digital copy. And that's like your $10 one as well. So you got your $10 one, you got your $100 one, come up with a couple in the middle, and then go from there.
I like that. Thank you. I'm definitely going to use that.
Do it. So happy to help.
Thank you.
So no, I think I will tell you this with Kickstarter. I've been trying to do one for like 2 years, and I kept making excuses. Just don't make excuses. Just rip the Band-Aid off and go. It's never going to be perfect. I was at a con about a month ago with Kevin Joseph, and he writes the Tart comic book with Scout Comics. And I was talking with him, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And he literally was like, just do it. Like, just do it. Like, stop talking about like just doing it, and just like, or you're gonna do it. Just do it. And I'm like, oh, you're right. And so sure. So.
Well, cool. No, I was gonna put it up, like I said, this week once it's done and ready. And like you said, even you can download the digital copy, and that this is a limited edition because some of it will be different than what's in the full final. Yeah.
Well, I like that because again, you get it out there and you start building your audience and go from there. I'll tell you this. One thing that somebody gave me the advice on was to build a preview, and there's some really cool things that people, not me, but other people can do with the animation from the comic book and make it just pop. And you get a really good preview. and even non-comic book readers will be like, holy crap, I want to check this out. And again, you've got one of those books where like you're going to be able to attract like a very wide audience, and you want to be able to put it in as many formats as possible to try and, you know, catch somebody's eye.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. So we talked a little bit about kind of the artist part. So you mentioned, you know, artists being a little behind on this and on that. And you and I talked quite a bit about trying to track down artists and just kind of get quality ones. So kind of I'm going to ask you this just from the artist perspective. I'm going to ask a different variation of the question later, but now that you've been into it for a little bit, what advice are you going to give somebody when they come to you and they're like, hey, you know, like I need to, you know, try and track down an artist, or I want to start a comic book. And again, I'll ask a different variation of this question, you know, closer to 10 o'clock, but like, what would you say to somebody?
I will say there's so many amazing artists. I went to freelance.com and I kind of went through and looked through the portfolios of who I kind of liked, what I kind of saw it as. And that's actually where I found my artist. Well, I should back up. My original artist was my storyboard artist, which he had never really done comics. And it was a mutual agreement to not continue, not because he isn't fantastic. He's just a storyboard artist. Not just, I mean, but it wasn't that gritty look that I really wanted for Red Creek, which I don't know. I didn't want it comic Scooby-Doo. I wanted it very gritty. It's very much Deadwood meets True Blood, you know, so I needed that look. So the artist I found, again, he is phenomenal. And anytime I get frustrated that it's not on time, he'll then deliver pages that I'm like, this is amazing artwork.
Yeah.
I can't get upset, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but he doesn't have the time. So I did pull him off of the Speed of War, and I'm just now going back through that process. And this is what I just have done is I paid someone to do a layout so that I knew exactly how many pages it would be. So I knew how many pages I'm paying for. And then I am paying 3 different artists to do 2 pages just to see if we click on what the script and what I'm asking for. And then after that, I'll pick one of them. And I don't know how to set up on timing. Like, I'm thinking I'll give them a month. And if we aren't hitting the page count we've agreed on, I'll pull the plug and look someplace else. Because I think that what last time is I let it go way too long. Yeah. And that's why I'm not in Atlanta, is because I don't have a product.
Right. So. Okay. Can I throw you some advice on that one?
Yes.
Okay. Add incentives for getting it done on time. So say their rate, I'm going to just whatever for math purposes, say their rate is $200 a page. If you're able, I would say, and I give this advice to anybody, but throw in like a 10% bonus for if they're done early.
Okay. You
get paid your regular rate if it's done on time. There's a 10% bonus if it's done early. I don't ever throw in like a negative if it's not done on time, because I feel like from a relationship standpoint, a lot of this is done with it's relationship stuff. So like I don't throw that in there, but I typically throw in an incentive to get it like done early, and it's something I've started very recently, and I've had pretty good success with it. So if you're able, something along those lines, because everybody likes making money. And if there's an incentive to get done sooner, and again, so if you set that deadline of like, hey, look, I need 6 pages, by such and such date, if they're delivered, say 5 days earlier than that, or 3 days earlier than that, you get an extra, $20 per page, which can pile up pretty quickly for the artist.
Yeah. All right. And has that worked, or have you implemented it?
It has worked, yes.
Oh, okay.
So I very recently implemented it, and I got some very, very good results on it. It's one of those things, if you're able, in this particular situation, I kind of is what it is. They came in lower than I was expecting on like their page rate. And so it kind of just was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I was planning on paying a little more. Okay, cool. Let me, so instead of like all right, I'm just going to pay them, 20 less bucks per page than I was expecting. I was just like, oh, let me throw this in there. And it just kind of turned into this thing where it's like, all right, cool. Well, if you get done by, X amount of time, I'll give you this per page. And they were done well in time.
Okay. All right. I will definitely try to implement that. It is like, I am understanding, because as a, I don't know what they call it, like script doctor writing, where I'm given a script and
Script
hey,
doctor,
we're going to production. Cool. Can you fix it? I will say that I always set my own deadline, which I have never hit. Because I think with creative stuff, you're like, I'll get a page in a day, and then something else happens and you don't. But I have always hit the production company deadline. So it is a frustrating thing, and yet I also understand it. Creative is a little different, but yeah.
Well, I think, look, life happens, and we're all people, and we try to be understanding. But at the same time, it's just like, as soon as you like kind of show that empathy with life happening, it almost gets taken advantage of.
That's exactly what I feel like. But again, when the art is this good, when I was at New York Comic Con, I was next to a table that was selling high-end art pieces. They had an original Batman painting from the original artist that this dude came in and bought for an obscene amount of money. And then he stopped at my table and he was like, oh, do you have any original artwork? And so this is a compliment to my artist, Josh Chinsky, he is phenomenal, because this guy said, have your artist do a painting for yourself and a painting for me, and I'll purchase it. So he is so talented. And that's where I get, frustrated, because I'm like, I want this done. But also, I'm not going to lie, like, I've looked at so many other portfolios and no one else has that look that I'm looking for. And you've seen some of the artwork. Like, it's amazing. So.
Oh, look, you're either going to get it fast or you're going to get it right. There's no, there's no both. So it's all good. And I completely understand, like, the Sheldor comic that we did, Sergio, who's based out of Spain. I mean, we initially set a deadline, and we were nowhere close to that deadline. Like, I mean, not even remotely close. But here's the deal. The pages look amazing. So, like, moving forward, the change we made was that we're just going to – this book is broken down into 12-page chapters. So instead of having Sergio do both chapters that are in a comic book, he's going to do one of the chapters. I'm going to have another artist do another chapter. And then he's not having to do all 24 pages. He's just, accountable for 12 of them. I still get to work with him, and it's absolutely amazing artwork, but I also get to keep putting out, more stories, and all the pressure isn't on him. So I think at the end of the day, like, again, when you find those people that you just want to work with, you find ways to work with them. So
I was going to ask that question on a different look. Does that hurt a comic? I guess I went into it kind of going, if I've cast Brad Pitt in a movie and then I do a sequel and it's Matt Damon, I mean, yeah, I guess that works, but in the comic world, so we're doing this limited edition, and then if, God forbid, something doesn't work out for him to finish the full thing, how badly does that hurt, help, indifferent, if then the full edition looks nothing the same because I have to go with a different artist?
Well, first off, if you have a casting director that got Brad Pitt in the first one and Matt Damon in the second one, good on them.
Right.
I will just say this. There are a lot of creative ways to make it work with the story. Okay. And it just depends on how different the artwork is. So mine is an all ages book. And I had the exact same question. And I actually was at a show with Andrea from Scout Comics. He's the head editor over there. And I asked him the exact same thing. I was like, I'm nervous about this. Like, what's going on? And I showed him some of the art, and he goes, no, you're fine. Like, and that was it. It was just, no, you're fine. Like, it's not going to be that big a deal. He's like, I don't think it's going to affect the audience, but I think you just have to be aware of it. But again, I think there's some really like interesting things you can do to kind of work in there in terms of like a change of art. Somebody made the recommendation for, it was a different book. And what they did was their character got glasses. was it. And then there was the character got glasses, and then the change of art kind of worked with the fact that the character was seeing things differently.
I like that.
So, or there was somebody who recommended, or they said something like, yeah, like my character got hit in the head. They were seeing things different.
So now it looks different. I like that.
So,
Yeah.
but again, like you can work, fun things like that. But I'll tell you this: I mean, like you go look at like your big art, your big comics, and they're changing artists all the time. They look still similar. I mean, Spider-Man's still Spider-Man, right? Like, but they change artists all the time. So as long as your main characters look, I think consistently enough, and as long as the writing is consistent enough and the story flows, I think you can get away with it. And I think sometimes it can actually improve the story. Especially if the art goes up. If it goes down, then I mean sometimes it's gonna notice. But if it goes up, like fine. And I've made the joke sometimes because we updated our artwork. And I mean I'll say this, like when we did the Project Titans, we did 6 issues. And it was over about 3 years that we did those 6 issues. And the artist, Keox, would give me grief because he's like, "You're still printing issue number 1," and I'm like, "Yes, it's issue number 1." And he's like, "But my art was so bad." he's like, "My art is so much better now," and I'm like, "That's cool, but like it's issue number 1. I can't skip it, buddy. Like it's
yeah.
But when you read the book, like literally as you're going through chapter by chapter, you watch his art improve.
Nice.
As you go. So I think you can do it. I think you just, again, you got to get creative and I think make it work with a story if you have to go that route.
I like that. I feel like on Speed of War, it's okay if we have different because it's different stories. Some will be Vietnam, some will be, so that one doesn't worry me as much as like we finally nailed the characters and how they look on Red Creek. And I'm just like, I just want to keep it. But yeah.
Well, and I'd say if you did that, though, worst comes to worst, like have the main artist do the characters and then hire somebody else to do the backgrounds.
Okay.
Like if he can't do the entire page and book, like have him do the main characters, then have somebody else go add the backgrounds, add the lettering, add the coloring, whatever. Okay. A lot of times you work with a bunch of different artists anyway. Someone will do the pencil and the inks, and then you'll have a flatter go in, and then you do your colors, then you'll have a letterer. So, I mean, you end up working with a bunch of different artists anyway. So, I mean, I would, again, worst comes to worst, if you're worried about the character piece of it, just have him do those.
Okay. I like that.
So, now don't pay him the same. Only pay him with character. But,
Which is, of course, the other thing is I'm getting such a good rate because he is doing all of it. And his coloring is really cool because he does a layered. So, like, the light in it looks more cinematic. So, yeah.
Well, look, here's the deal. At that point, I mean, you're this close, right? Like you're almost done. I would just wait it out. Like, once it's done, if it's done right, you're going to be selling it for years and years and years and years. This is the opposite advice that I normally give. Normally, I'm just like, just get it done. Just get it done. But no, like, just do it right. Like you've already spent so much time on it and invested what you invested. I would just say, just make sure it's done right. Make sure it's done to the level that you want it done. And that's going to be the big piece. Cause I mean, you know the value in what you have. So, make sure that when you put it out there, somebody else looks at it. Like we have, like Swerve did earlier before we lost him. And just like, holy crap, like this is big. So,
okay. No, I'll definitely send it. Well, hopefully, like I said, this week we will have it and I will totally be sending it to you and you can be like, before we go to print, if something's missing, fix this.
So did ATL Con, like, did they give you a refund on your table or anything, or like what's the
deal? And also I think I like held out too long, like just hoping. It's fine, lesson learned. So yeah.
Are you gonna do Tampa?
What's that?
Are you gonna do Tampa?
I don't know. So it gets tough because I start having other projects and because it's 18-hour days and the weekends are usually my time to sort of regroup. So like I know for sure my schedule August and September are okay. I applied for Orlando. I think I'm on the wait list.
Which
so
one?
I may make that one. So
which one for Orlando?
What's that?
Which one for Orlando?
Oh, I think it's the one at the end of March. So end of next month one. So I may not. I mean, they may not
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wait, let's me fine. Because like I said, I knew this one will be, we're so close. I think I just need the lettering in one page for the limited edition. So I'm so close.
That's heartbreaking.
But it's beautiful. It'll look fantastic when it's done. I am thrilled with it every time.
Yeah.
Like I said, whatever my frustration level, he then turns it in and I just go, whatever. I'm happy. This is beautiful.
Now, are you going to pop up there and network at all, or just like not go?
I'm not. No, I just was like, I mean, maybe that's wrong of me, but I kind of thought like New York was fine that all I had was the character cards.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know what? I don't want to do that again. 3 days and all I have is character cards. So yeah.
No, I get you. I get you. I've missed the show before. It is what it is. I can promise you from experience what's going to happen. Okay. Like they're not even going to, this is unfortunate, but they're not going to know that you didn't show up, because what's going to happen is the two tables beside you are going to figure out how to use your table. So they're going to expand into it and basically just take it over. And you're never going to meet them, but you are their best friend because you gave them extra space. So.
They are welcome to it. I did email them and said I'm not going to make it, and absolutely anyone who can use it, go forth.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, so because I was going to ask, because they run Tampa as well, so that's why I was asking if you were doing Tampa, because sometimes they'll let you transfer it to another show.
Okay.
So
I think the date on Tampa I don't think I could make when I was looking at the different dates. So.
Yeah, sometimes they'll push you. Sometimes they'll push you to the following year. So, but I will tell you this: I have upset many folks because I am constantly late to shows, and they're always like the people beside me are always planning to take over my table, and then I show up.
And they're like, "Dang it!"
God, man, like, why'd you make it? So yeah, it happens though. It happens.
And do you ever fly to any of these, or you just drive? Because how do you get the bit? Like, I'm planning on having. Well, I don't even know. How many books do you bring to sell?
So it depends on the show.
Okay.
So it very much depends on the show. So me personally, I focus on doing shows in the Southeast because I can usually drive it. I can usually get back at a decent time. That allows me to bring all my stuff and just my vehicle. So we've done Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana is typically kind of where we hit. I would like to do some more stuff kind of along the Northeast, but I will tell you this, it really just depends, again, like what type of volume you're trying to put out. Some people will ship their stuff just to the hotel.
Okay. So
whatever hotel you're staying, just ship it. A lot of them, especially if you're doing a big con, like they'll have different things. Some of the cons will allow you to basically ship it there and kind of get it delivered. If you're doing an Airbnb, kind of the same deal. You can work it out and get creative. And then again, it just really depends from an inventory perspective. I admit, me personally, I'm a seller. So I bring volume. I will bring more than I hope I need. And then I will make it my goal to sell out before Sunday.
Okay.
So I try to bring volume, but at the same time, you know what your cost is. So for example, if you know how much your table costs, you know how much you have invested in each one of your books. So figure out what your profit is or what you're trying to do at that particular show. Don't bring any less than that. You know what I mean? I've had people who, they sold out on Saturday and they're like, yeah, but I lost $100 this weekend. I'm like, why didn't you bring more stuff? Like what?
Right.
How did you lose money? So it just depends. You can. I will say we're to a point now where a pretty average day at a show is somewhere between 20 and 30 trades.
Okay.
That's just our 20 and 30 trades that we can put out. A bad, don't worry about it. I got mine walking around too. Kind of towards the bad end, we'll be in the low teens.
Okay.
And then I think the best day we ever had was 60 plus trades in a day. No, 72 trades in a day. It was the best day we ever had. So I'm constantly trying to beat that. But I'll tell you, it's a constant game of trying to figure things out. We've sold out at a bunch of shows because I just underguessed it. And as you get better, and that's the other thing you can't really quantify, is as you're getting better, you're always basing it off your previous shows. Like, how did I do here? How did I do here? But the thing is, you keep leveling up every time you go and do more. And then you get a little better and you're just like, why do I, why am I not bringing enough? And like, we did a show one time where my wife stashed like 20 extra sets of books in my vehicle because she thought I wasn't bringing enough. And I went in, I like, same deal. Like we sold out first thing Sunday morning, and she was just like, no, you've got, 20 extra in the passenger seat, like,
Nice.
like in this bag or something like that. And sure enough, went and checked and got them. And I was like, wow, okay, thank you. So yeah, I would just say it depends. So yours, Red Creek it's going to start as one issue, right? Or is it going to be
and then go to 5. So the first issue is that limited edition. It is 20 pages, but the graphic novel, I think it's 70 pages. So then it'll be 5 total graphic novels.
Nice. That'll be fun. When you have all 5 of those, like that's going to be when you're like slinging some volume. But as soon as you get to the 70 page, like to the trade there, like you're going to be able to move that. Like people love, like when they pick it up, everybody wants to binge read. So like you're going to see that like when you've got that volume to it, it's actually easier to sell the trade than it is to sell the single issue.
Interesting.
The single issue is actually kind of hard to sell because people want more. And then when you get like the more volume to it, like people are just like, yeah, give it to me. All of a sudden they'll buy the trade and the single issue because they want to buy everything you have. It's
nice. That's
it makes 0 sense whatsoever, but it's how it works out. So, but yeah, I would minimum whatever show you're doing, I would bring 25 per day. Like if
that's about what that's about. I mean, maybe I was being a little, hopeful, and I think I was thinking like 100 total for the big ones, but
you can do it. No. I mean, you can do it. Like it's definitely, and again, it also is kind of like, what are you counting? So again, if you're selling like single, floppies and you're trying to get to 100, the biggest thing there though, when you're trying to get to like selling 100 is just, you need to talk to everybody. Like there's no sitting down. There's no break time. Like there's just, you need to talk to everybody. It's all about volume when you're trying to push out volume like that. So for us, like at a certain point we didn't have the trade yet, but we had issues 1 through 5. And so we could do 100 easy because we were selling 5 issues at a time. So, I mean, we were doing 100 a day at that point because we were selling, what I would call 20 sets, but it was just, everything was 5, everybody.
No, and I definitely, like I said, that I think I'm good at that, at being gregarious and hi, and you just walk by and I'm going to be like, hi.
Yeah. Oh no, do it. Do it. The biggest thing, and I found this too, though, is, it's hard to maintain it for like 3 or 4 days. So bring so you talked about, you're going to have the Speed of War guys with you. Bring other people, not to really like try to duplicate what you're doing, because nobody's going to be able to duplicate what you do. Like you do it on a level that nobody else can. Like you're going to sell your book better than anybody else who can sell your book, right? Like, but they'll kind of help you like be a barometer and keep yourself like in check. Because again, even me, like I've had shows where like I'm just by Sunday, like one of the worst days I've ever had at a show was completely my fault. And it was because I was just in a bad mood. I had a conversation I didn't enjoy in the morning and I couldn't get myself out of it. I stayed in a funk. And then I was getting upset because people weren't stopping and talking to us like they were the day before. And I blamed it on the Sunday crew and the Sunday traffic and this and that. And I made every excuse in the world. And it wasn't until like 2 days later that I kind of thought back about how I acted differently Friday and Saturday compared to Sunday. And it was completely on me because I just wasn't doing the basic things that I did at every show to really drive it. So again, like bring them, because my buddy Nick will be the first one to tell me just like, hey, get your head out of your ass and go sell. Like, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you're right.
No, because actually, as you said that, it was just the one day in New York and I was exhausted because I had some friends that wanted to get together and I was so glad that I said no, because I was like, I'm just going back up to my room and going to sleep and I don't really want to see another human. So that's actually really, yeah, gosh, I don't know if I'm prepared for 3 days, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you get like Dragon's like 4 or 5. Like it's like nuts. Like New York Comic Con I think is 5. And it's funny too, and you mentioned like going to your room and getting some sleep. So that was like me for the first like few shows I ever did. I mean, I went and I did the show And people at the show would invite you out. And I'm just like, no, like I have no energy. Like I'm feeling like I left everything on the table. And the first time that I actually went out and like networked after a show, I was like, I'm never going back to my room ever again.
Ooh, okay.
Because the networking after the show is ridiculous. And you make so many good connections, like anything you can do. Again, there's one show, I just went down to the bar at the hotel and I met a couple of the voice actors. Like, and it ended up being great. And they ended up sending people to me, over the next couple of days. And like, it ended up being one of my best shows still to this day. And it was simply because I just went down to the bar instead of sitting up in my room. And then sometimes the shows put together different things where like all the artists and the writers and everybody can get together, and you'd be really surprised. Like you meet some great people that you can't network with during the day because you're hustling at your table. And then you get to meet them and go from there. So no, I've at least to the point where like I think it's usually Saturday night. Like I make a point where it's like, all right, I'm Saturday night's networking night. Like Sunday I can have a little less energy than Saturday, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, like Saturday night's my networking night.
Then I will definitely just collect energy and be like, okay, let's. No, I was surprised at how many, because I just had the character cards. And again, Mike and Andy have a built-in fan base, and there were a number of people that were very upset that they were not there in New York. They specifically came, I think, to see them. But even on my Red Creek, I sold like half of what I brought of just the character cards. So I was like, okay, maybe I have something here. So they made whatever. The group made me feel fantastic. Those who attended the New York Comic-Con. Fantastic.
It should. Like again, there's so many cool things, and there's so many people out there that are going to appreciate. There's Oven. If you ever do some stuff in South Florida, there's a guy named Oven, Marvin, who's normally with us, but he lost his internet and apparently has not been able to get it back. But Oven is somebody who goes around, and I mean, you always meet him at shows, and he always comes in, and he talks about your stories and stuff like that. And he's just one of those fans. And Marvin ended up working him into his book. So Marvin actually made him like his the sidekick to like his main guy.
Oh, that's so cool.
Again, you will meet some of the most awesome fans and just the most awesome people. And again, it's interesting. It's a very unique audience altogether. And I will tell you the one thing that will drive me up a wall, though, like and you'll get it, and it is what it is. But they're going to come in, and the first thing, and it's usually probably I think meant as a compliment, but it's oh, this reminds me of this, and I'm just
yeah. I kept waiting for someone to say that it reminded them of oh shoot, is it Red Dead or Dead Redemption?
Oh, Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah. I kept thinking someone's gonna say that, but no one said that, so I was like, "Ooh, okay."
Yeah, ours is our it's called Project Titans, and so everyone's like, "Oh, is this like Attack on Titan?" And you're just like, "No, it's not." Like I just told you what the story's about. It's not about Attack on Titan. But yeah, I mean, it just is what it is. But yeah, you'll get them. They're fun. It's always interesting, and there's just such a unique set of people. And again, 99% of them are the most supportive people in the world, and the other 1% are
a little weird. Yeah, interesting is the best word.
Well, cool. So you got some good shows coming up. You got both the books, in the works. Is there any aspirations for like a third series? Like, are you? Because for me, like, unfortunately, I get like halfway done with one, and I'm already thinking about the next. So, like, do you have or something else? You're already like, oh, as soon as I'm done with this,
I do. So, well, just in general now, as a writer, again, this is something, I don't have to go raise $60 million to make a movie, and I have so much control. So a lot of my original scripts, I am like, ooh, I think this one fits. So I have this script gets optioned all the time, which in the film, it gets optioned, meaning they give you a check for it. And they're supposed to go into production, depending on your option, 1 to 5 years. And I usually option this one for 2 years. And so it's been optioned a number of times, but then it never gets made. I don't know why, but it's a zombie one, but I actually tell you how they become the zombies. And, good deeds. It's actually at a sort of Walter Reed, and the idea is the guy regenerating cells. Except for his wife is dying of cancer, and so he uses on her after she's actually dead. And again, the beautiful thing about zombie movies, scripts, whatever, is that it's really social commentary. So they have an incredibly unhealthy relationship. He is willing to burn the world to keep his wife alive, and then our hero is willing to sacrifice to save the world, kind of thing. But my zombies are based on the real zombies out of Haiti, which use a lot of photosynthesis. So during the day they're still dying, but they closer resemble humans, and then at night are full on just starving creatures, and we make really easy prey. Like if you looked at like what you would chase for prey, humans are really easy, and they're so starving they just go after the humans. So anyway, that one's called Before the Dawn, and it's a 3 script thing. But I was like, oh, next time it comes up, I think the option runs out this summer. I was like, oh, I think this would make a good comic, Before the Dawn. So I may do that one.
All right, I already want to read it. So yeah, cool, good stuff. So all right, so you've got that one, and that's interesting too. So you said you've optioned it a couple times. So knowing nothing, does it ever like frustrate you that it doesn't actually get made into a movie?
No, I mean, in the beginning it would, and also in the beginning, I mean, I still probably shouldn't talk about projects because until they actually are released, it doesn't matter the level, they can always fall apart. No, I just kind of realized that, look, I get paid for it, so I'm happy. I got a check for it, and if they make it, fantastic. If they don't, it returns back to me. So the famous story is that Home Alone was optioned for a lot of money 10 times before it was made. And so, you know what, that writer just banked, the money. So it's the nature of the industry. I don't like, it's so hard to make a movie. So as much fun of that I make of my film Freshwater, at the end of the day, I'm like, I did make a movie. And I went into it with this was my thought. I was like, how hard can it be to make a movie? And I was like, it's really hard. I don't know how I did it exactly. And to redo that, like every cylinder has to just hit exactly right. So no, I kind of take it in stride that things will eventually work out, and you just have to keep persistent. Keep a bunch of different scripts ideas coming forward. One of them will hit, and yeah.
Well, I love that. That's awesome. That's a great perspective. And again, I would completely agree. I think the fact that you made a movie is just freaking awesome. So congrats on that.
Well, until you've watched it. When you watch it, you made
whatever.
it.
Who cares? Who cares? You made it. Like, I'm sorry, but like that's the biggest thing. And you'll find this again too at Comic Cons. Like people will tell you, oh, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And it's just like, do it. Kind of like the actor told you, go write it. You know what I mean? Like, and you did. And again,
yep. Which I now find, because I don't know if you find this, that people probably in the comic world, I mean, I guess I kind of did it too. Like, oh, I have an idea to do it. And then how many people fall through? So when people find out I'm a screenwriter, I have an idea for a screenplay. And I find myself saying the same thing. Oh, you should go write that. And no one ever has.
But so here's the thing, and this is for me. If you come up to me and you say, hey, I want to do this, and again, very similar to what you did, I'm going to encourage the crap out of somebody. And what I'll tell you, and again, I'll offer all bits of piece of advice, and I'll make myself available if you want to help. Because typically people who want to help are actually trying to make it happen. And I'm all for that because people helped me, so I will help people who are actually trying to make it happen. But there are some that, I mean, it's just always going to be talk. They're never going to pull it off for one reason or the other. And some people have this, or some people have that, or whatever, or they're just on their own path, and that's completely okay. But like you said, there's a lot of individuals, and yeah, it happens. It's it's part of it, and I joke around that it kind of happens too, though. Because
I'm getting up because I have to plug in my phone. It's gonna die.
But it kind of has to be that way because truthfully, if everybody who wanted to make a book made a book, there would be far too many books.
Right.
So, such is life. Well, so it's funny though, because this is you're plugging yours in, and the first podcast that we ever did, the person that I'm not going to name his name, Marvin, did not plug his phone in, and we're like 30 minutes in or whatever. It's just like his phone, like you see him go to grab his phone, and like it starts to pause, and like it almost looks like dramatic special effects, but it was just his phone dying. And then we just sat there and talked to each other for like 10 minutes before Marvin came back, and we finished it. Luckily, we didn't go live back then.
Oh.
So, those shenanigans we could edit out. But yeah, so good stuff. But all right, so you got the next project. You already know kind of what you want to work on. You're in this. At any point, is it just too much? At any point, you're just like, holy crap, if I wasn't already 75% into this, like I would quit right now.
No, but I don't know that that's how my brain works. So yeah, no, I definitely am just, okay, how do we keep pushing this forward? I just so see the vision for it. And I know, like for Red Creek, I know this is the right home for it. With the military one, it's nice because I have the guys working with me. So any frustration or just how we're restarting over, to have their support is fantastic. So no, I feel also, again, like film, like I just said, in film, things fall apart all the time, and you just have to regroup, figure out the next group to put it with, and move forward.
I love that. Now, do you enjoy something? And you kind of get a mix now, right? Because you get to write your story, Red Creek, by yourself, and you have more collaboration. Do you feel like kind of having that balance helps you?
Yes. I mean, I love the collaboration. So I can only write so much when it's in my head. So that's what I was saying, like about the feedback. I love the feedback because it may be something so simple that I just miss because I'm too in my own head on it. So even like, I'll just go back to my film Freshwater. The script is laid out, and I'm pretty detailed in how I write the script, but there's this one actor, John Bobeck. He's amazing. And he would technically do what it said in the script, but he would just elevate it to such a cool place that I thought, oh, this is the fun of directing, is he just took, like, it was one thing he was supposed to chug in an annoyed way. And he did it in such a funny way. It was supposed to be comedic that I started laughing behind the camera. And I just thought, this is amazing. I love the collaboration. So no, I'm a big fan of collaboration. The more I can get that, the happier I am.
I agree with you to an extent. Because again, on the other side of it, unfortunately, sometimes you have people there's collaboration, and then you have others that kind of just want to control it. And I think as long as you're working with the right collaborators, it can be great. When you work with the wrong collaborators, it turns into work. Is the best way I'm going to describe it. It really just turns into work, and it's not as much fun. So collaboration is great when it's with the right people.
Yes, that is true. And again, just knowing what you hold precious and what you don't. So a lot of what I do is just sort of my day job is the script doctoring. And if I'm allowed, I'm not always allowed to, so this is always interesting. If I'm allowed to talk to the original writer, I will always say, what do you hold precious? Because I don't want to take that out, and just sort of honor what they wrote. And then, you're working with directors and producers, and I don't know, they may want the cat changed to a dog or something changed in it. And you kind of just have to go, okay, that's not something we hold precious. The theme is still there. The story is still there. So, yeah.
So when that happens, though, I mean, so what's the most you've had to like completely overhaul a story?
So I'm actually working on this script right now. I signed an NDA, so I don't know if I can say it more, but it started as a psychopathic boy child, and it is now a little girl, and there's like voodoo involved. Like it really is not even the same script. The original screenwriter will get credit for it, but it is not his script. So that happens a lot, where it just gets changed completely.
Okay, so many questions about this. So first off, are you ever like a little salty that like you don't get credit for doing
No, it actually really frees me up because you also never know how it's going to turn out. So it frees me up to just do my job, and I learn a lot. Like, I mean, I learned this filming even. It's one thing to write completely unabandoned, creative, whatever you want to write. Then when I'm brought in, okay, now we have to limit locations because we have a limited budget. On Freshwater, there's a scene where I have 6 people in it, and I'm filming, and I was like, who wrote 6 people in one scene? I have to get coverage of everyone. This is going to take all day. And so I will never write 6 people in a scene again because that took a long time. So then you write like practically. And so I feel like I get both worlds. Like, again, in this world, the comic, I can write anything we can draw, and that's fantastic. But when I get hired to do rewrites, or even if they want to change something in my script, I'm like, okay, well, now you have to actually film that. So now you have to change it. So no, I don't really. Now, again, this is why I did not sell Red Creek, though, because I knew the changes they wanted to make, and I did not want those changes made. So you kind of have to know what scripts you want to hold and which ones you're like, yeah, go forth. I know you'll change whatever you want to change.
I respect that. Your perspective is awesome. Well, that's really cool. I've never thought about that. That's very unique in terms of, again, the way you're able to approach it. Again, I wouldn't be able to look at it like that. For me, it's just like, does it fit on the page? Okay, cool. Is this crazy enough? Like, how batcrap crazy can we get on this page? So no, I agree. I think comics are very freeing in that way. That's interesting. That's really cool. Now, how did you get into again, kind of like doing the script doctor piece of it? Like that's very unique. So like
I did a rewrite for Hallmark, and then I think just like word of mouth, because I do think I'm pretty easy. And I feel like I have an ability to write in someone else's voice. So kind of keep their, if it's grittier, if it's squeaky clean, like whatever it is. So I don't even really know. It just sort of, I would just get hired for jobs. And, one producer's like, oh, I worked with so-and-so. Would you be interested in taking this? So, yeah. And I have an agent, which that helps. So he fields a lot of it at this point. So.
There you go. I love that. That's freaking awesome. That is really cool. Are there anywhere you're just like, all right, I don't really have to touch much, or is it always like a pretty big overhaul?
There is a Blumhouse film. I don't know what I want to say. Anyway, it came out last year, and they asked me to do rewrites. And when I got it, I was like, this is the most perfect script I've ever read. What do y'all want changed? And it was tiny, tiny tweaks on a female character. And that's all I touched on it. And I was glad that's all they had me touch, because I was like, this script is really good. So, yeah. But then, like I said, I've had others where I'm kind of like, why did y'all purchase the script? You want everything changed on it, but whatever.
So it's not my money. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, heck yeah. So now, again, obviously you kept Red Creek, and what you have and what you want to build. So is the goal one day for it to be, television or a movie, or is it?
Do I have a vision board with this on it? 1,000%. Yes. The goal is Frank Darabont. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a writer, director, showrunner. Yeah. He did little things like Shawshank Redemption, the first 2 years of Walking Dead. He's kind of amazing. Is to have him show run it. Okay. HBO, 5 seasons of 10 episodes each. That is where I see. I even know who the actors are, which, here's a crazy story. I don't think they'll mind me telling it. So I'm at the New York Comic Con. I was setting stuff up the night before, going up and down the elevator. Then my key card would not work. I don't even remember how many times I went up before they were finally like, oh, I think we need to change the batteries in the lock. Like, it's not the key. So it was one of the times I was going up. I was super frustrated. And this guy jumps into the elevator, like whacks the door, jumps in really weird. And I gave him a weird look, and he goes, that was kind of psychotic. And I go, yeah, and now I'm in the elevator with a serial killer. And he was like, haha. He leaves and he's like, don't get killed. I was like, okay, that was weird. The next day he's on the floor with a camera crew. I only say that because I don't talk to other film people because we're weird. So I would have never spoken to this man if I had just seen him on the floor with a camera. As a matter of fact, I would have just like looked away, like I don't want to get into it, that this is what I do. But I saw him and so I go, oh, serial killer or film industry. I knew it had to be one of them. So we started talking. So he's at my table, like every time he'd pass, he was doing a documentary on someone that happened to be there at the Comic-Con. And so he goes, oh, this is a series about Red Creek. And I go, yeah, that's my goal. I tell him my whole goal. He's like, who do you see in it? And I said, well, the only guy that can play Kane is Nikolai Coster-Waldau. This guy's name is Stephen Bakken. He is Nikolai Coster-Waldau's business partner. So he goes, look into the camera, give your pitch, and I will send it to him. We are doing a documentary together, but when we come back, I just thought, is that fate? Because I would have never spoken to him.
That's nuts.
If he had not weirdly jumped into the elevator.
Talked about being a serial killer.
Hopefully, yeah, he will, like it. And yeah, Nikolai Coster-Waldau is the only one who can play King. Watch, someone else will play it now, but
it's all good. We'll delete it. We'll edit it out. It's all good. That's freaking cool. So, and again, though, like when that's crap that only happens at a Comic-Con. Like I'm just absolutely convinced that is the chaos that only happens at the Comic-Cons. So that is really freaking cool. Like, well, hey, look, fingers crossed. You have put it out there. You made your pitch, right? So how do you feel about the pitch? Like, how did that, were you?
I felt like because I was so caught off guard, I didn't have time, and I had been pitching it all day. Like people, what is this about? And I'm, go into my pitch on what it's about. So I think it went pretty well. So we'll see.
Well, that's freaking awesome. That is really cool. And I love that you have a plan. And I think at the end of the day, having a plan and being able to work it, like, again, sometimes everybody else is just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And hey, look, when that works, fantastic. But I think when you're a little more targeted with it and a little more focused, it has legs. It can go a little farther. So very cool. All right. So we're getting kind of towards the end here. Okay. What advice do you have for anybody who wants to get into either directing or, again, from the writing perspective? What advice would you give them to, kind of overcome some hurdles or even just get started? Because I feel like a lot of times people don't get started because of like this fear of failure and they don't know where to start. What is some advice that you would give?
So for screenwriting, I always say just do it. And anyone that asks me, I actually have a whole how you do an outline, how you do character development, how you would go. And I hand that out for free all the time because then you just have to sit down and do it. There's a ton of great books like Save the Cat is probably one of the most famous. Get it, read it, write at least 3 screenplays. And then there are a ton of free pitches, or maybe not free. I don't think you spend more than like $35 to $50. And just go to those pitch meetings and pitch your heart out. And usually people will tell you what they like, what they don't like. If they pass, it may get picked up. Also, enter it into competition. So there's something called the Blue Cat competition. That one is fantastic for screenplays because they also will give you notes on it. And then there's something called the Blacklist. That is how I got an agent, is if you submit it on the Blacklist, if you get an 8 or above, pretty much you're going to get an agent if your script gets, but the rate, like, so they rate you 1 through 10. I don't know if anyone's ever gotten a 10, but, and they'll give you really, really good notes on it, on how to change it. So screenwriting, if you have no N, that's the N I always tell people. Directing is really, I think you have to just go do it. Like, whether it's with your iPhone and making a short and entering it. I used to be on the judging of the Tallahassee Short Film Festival. Really? Just put it into festivals. A ton of films started as short films, Napoleon Dynamite, like those kind of. But I think you have to just go do it. I would always say don't go to school. They're not going to teach. Like, everyone's going to start as a production assistant. I started as a production assistant. That's where you're going to start. And if you're a hard worker, you'll work in the industry. So that's my advice on writing directing. I don't know if I have advice. I think I'm still so new in comic world. So I don't know.
But it's all the same. Just do it. Like, just get out there and do it. I mean, that's the biggest piece. I would, like you said, you hit the nail on the head, and it's what I would encourage anybody. And it's the way, again, I've encouraged many people who have come up and asked is just do it. Like, you're gonna run, no matter how much advice anybody gives you, you're still gonna run into your own obstacles, and you're gonna run into your own challenges. So I can help somebody overcome a challenge that maybe I ran into, but they're still gonna find their own. So it's all gonna be about their ability to adapt, evolve, and overcome. But it's really awesome advice all around. And it's funny because I do these, weekly at this point, and I always learn something new whenever we do these podcasts. So that's really cool. And again, I think what you're doing is awesome. I think your book is going to be absolutely amazing. So I cannot wait to see it and read it. And I'm really excited to get to meet up at Tallahassee Comic Con or Infinity Con in Tallahassee. That'll be a lot of fun. You need to hit up, if you want, I can email David if you want to do a panel and get up there and talk about the book. Like, they always do panels, so I usually hop on one. If you want, I will CC you and put you in touch with them to get up there and do a panel and just kind of talk. It's a good way to get eyes on your book and just see a different perspective.
No, I would love to. Absolutely. And hopefully then by then, like I said, the book should come out this week, but definitely by then I'll have a book out. So I won't feel like I feel like a little bit of a fraud. Like, it's not quite there yet. So yeah.
I get it. I understand. I told my wife one time, like, I only feel like I'm in comics when I'm at a Comic-Con. Like, it's the only place I feel like I'm actually in comics. Like, everywhere else, like, I'm
really? Oh, interesting. Because you have so many. And I mean, again, I just want to say thank you. You've been so helpful. Anytime I have just been like, hey, I don't know what to do. So I'm really appreciative of all the help. You definitely get a special thank you bylines. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Very happy to help. Anytime you've reached out, it's been great stuff. And again, I feel like I've learned from you as well. So it's been very cool. But yeah, I don't feel like I'm in comics unless I'm at a Comic-Con. And I think that's one year I ended up doing like 16 Comic-Cons, and that was why. Like, it was just like, and I had to kind of get past that. So I say that because I don't know if that feeling ever goes away. Like, I don't really know how to, like, it's just kind of part of it. Like, comics is just kind of something you go do, and then one day you're like, oh, I'm a comic book writer. Okay, cool.
I'm a comic.
Oh, sure. So, all right, cool. So where can people follow you? Like, where can are you on the social medias? Like,
I'm not as much, but I do have, and I had to write this down because I wrote it. So on Instagram, it's red.creekcomic.
Okay.
But also redcreekcomic.com. And so I'll have all the stuff up there. And then on the Speed of War, it's all, so the Speed of War on Instagram and thespeedofwar.com.
All right. Everybody go check it out. Miss Brandy Berry, who's an absolute freaking rock star, and it's hopefully going to be in Chicago in March. We'll see if the wait list works out. If not, if you're in the Tallahassee area, definitely going to be in Infinity Comic Con, rocking out. Go check out Red Creek. Go check Speed of War. Thank you all very much, and have a great one.
Thank you.
Have a great one, everybody.